Once upon a time, in a world where fairy tales were real, two of the kindest princesses in the land, Cinderella and Snow White, were the best of friends. They often had tea parties together, shared stories, and helped those in need. But one day, a terrible message arrived at Snow White's castle. A wicked sorcerer named Malric the Shadow had stolen the Starlight Crystal, a magical gem that kept all the kingdoms safe. Without it, darkness would spread, and happiness would fade from the land. Snow White gasped as she read the letter. "Cindy, we have to stop him," she said, using her nickname for Cinderella. Cinderella nodded bravely. "We'll need a plan and maybe a little magic." That night, under the glow of the moon, the two princesses met in Cinderella's garden. "We can't let Malric win," said Snow White, her blue eyes filled with determination. "But how do we find him?" Cinderella wondered. Just then, a tiny voice piped up. "We can help!" It was Jack and Gus, Cinderella's clever mouse friends. "Malric's hiding in the Forbidden Tower," squeaked Jack. "And he's guarded by shadow creatures," added Gus, shivering. Snow White smiled. "Then we'll have to be sneaky." The next morning, the princesses disguised themselves as traveling merchants. Cinderella wore a simple brown dress and a hood, while Snow White tucked her hair under a cap. They packed a basket with apples, Snow White's favorite, and a glass slipper, just in case. As they journeyed through the enchanted forest, they heard rustling in the bushes. "Who's there?" Cinderella called. Out popped the 7 dwarfs. "Snow White!" Doc exclaimed. "We heard about Malric, we want to help." But Snow White shook her head. "It's too dangerous. We need you to protect the kingdom while we're gone." Grumpy crossed his arms. "Fine, but be careful." After a long journey, the princesses reached the Forbidden Tower, tall, gloomy castles surrounded by swirling dark mist. "How do we get inside?" whispered Cinderella. Just then, Snow White had an idea. "Malric loves rare treasures, right? What if we give him something he wants?" She pulled out a shiny red apple, the same kind the evil queen had once used, but this one was safe, enchanted only to glow brightly. Cinderella grinned. "Perfect!" They knocked on the tower door, and a grumpy shadow creature answered. "What do you want?" Snow White held up the glowing apple. "A gift for the great Malric." The creature's eyes widened, and it led them inside. Malric, a tall man with a cloak of shadows, snatched the apple greedily. At last, the apple of eternal night. Cinderella and Snow White exchanged a glance. He had fallen for their trick. But then Malric laughed. "Fools! Did you think I wouldn't recognize princesses in disguise?" With a wave of his hand, ropes of dark magic wrapped around them. "You'll never stop me!" Malric cackled. "The Starlight Crystal is mine!" Trapped, the princesses didn't panic. Cinderella whispered to her animal friends hiding in her hood. "Gus, Jack chewed through the ropes." The mice nibbled quickly, and as soon as they were free, Snow White whistled a sweet tune. "Tweet, tweet!" Birds swooped in, distracting Malric while Cinderella spotted the Starlight Crystal on his staff. "Now!" she cried. Snow White grabbed a bucket of water, left by a careless shadow guard, and splashed it at Malric's feet. Slipping, he dropped the staff, and Cinderella caught it, holding the crystal high. Cinderella shouted, "Let light defeat darkness!" A brilliant glow burst from the gem, shattering Malric's shadows. He howled as his magic faded, vanishing into thin air. The tower trembled, and the princesses ran outside just as it collapsed behind them. Back at Snow White's castle, everyone cheered. The Starlight Crystal was returned to its rightful place, shining over the kingdoms once more. The 7 dwarfs, the mice, and even Grumpy celebrated with a grand feast. "You are amazing," said Doc. Cinderella smiled. "We make a pretty good team." Snow White nodded. Who knew princesses could be secret agents? And from that day on, whenever danger threatened the land, the two friends were ready because no sorcerer, no trap, and no shadow could ever defeat the bravery of Cinderella and Snow White. The end.